and new relationships being forged as humans move ever closer to machines. Where's it all going? What are the possibilities? To answer this for Anne-Marie Tomchak from Mashable, who better to ask than the General Manager of AI for X Prize, Amir Banifatemi.
Good afternoon. Hello, Lisbon. Great to be here. And great to be here to chat to Amir, who is working at the forefront of AI. When I saw this topic, machines and man, I have to say it really piqued my interest. It's something that we all think about. But the first thing that struck me, Amir, was that there's often this Hollywood perception about machines and robots and superintelligence and artificial intelligence and what that means for the human race. And the spectrum of opinions in the AI world goes from, the really sci-fi out there points of view to the pragmatists who believe that this is just something that's going to help us live our lives more easily. Where do you lie within that spectrum?
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for the question. As you can see, we're definitely living a new age of machine intelligence. AI has come of age, again, in the past few years, thanks to progresses in machine learning and deep learning and neural networks. But really what nourishes AI and robotics and the concept of man and machine is really Hollywood, science fiction, and everything that is portrayed that basically transport us into worlds that are either connecting us to the cloud or makes us transhumanist or better, or basically picture a very dark world. So really the narrative has been initially polarized between a very dystopian world and a very utopian world. And really what matters is in the middle is this quest for intelligence, to understand what intelligence really is, because we don't have the answer. We're making those much progress, but we don't have the answer. So this is where we're focusing on and trying to understand the real impact of intelligence on our lives.
So we often focus on the tech and the mechanics of that. But really, that's not what we care about, is it? Based on some of the findings that you have from your work with X Prize.
Technology is just one aspect of the narrative between man and machine. Technology is actually improving, as you can see. I have some slides, actually, hopefully, to illustrate some of those. You can see this image, which is a very familiar image by now, hopefully. I'll talk to it if you don't see them.
I can see it here in the screen behind me.
But it's moving up. So we're basically in an era where machines are augmenting us. We have all glasses and hearing aids, and now we have artificial limbs and artificial organs. But soon we're going to be going to something like this, which is even more inclusive. So technology really brings us to a world where the conversation of man and machine is taking over completely, up to a point where actually, we launched about a year ago this notion of Avatar X Prize. As probably most of you know, X Prize launches massive challenges, inviting the world to solve something extremely difficult that no government will touch or no venture capital will invest into startups, and really goes beyond the simple research. And the goal of this competition really was to answer these questions about, are we going to be able to connect with each other through machines? And the goal of this prize is to create an avatar, a robotic avatar, not a virtual one, that will allow every one of you to transport your sense of being and presence and skills somewhere else. So imagine there's a hurricane or some disaster somewhere, and instead of taking a plane, you'll be able to be there and help with your skills, such as a plumber or a teacher or a doctor or anything else. So this is the way we push the narrative to incentivize beyond just technology of robots and avatars to come up with scenarios that will explain how we're going to be living life in the future and what it means for us socially.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those scenarios, because Amir and I have been chatting about this, and I have to say, it completely challenged my perceptions about AI and what it's good for. Can you take us through some of the case studies that there are to illustrate that?
Absolutely. We actually asked that question about 3 years ago. We launched a competition sponsored by IBM called the IBM Watson AI Prize. And the question we asked was, what is AI good for, in simple terms? And out of 10,000 participants, 150 of them qualified, and out of the 150 that qualified, all the answers were not what the industry is working on. It were anywhere from saving bees to wildlife to detecting asthma to help create educational bot for children, you name it, climate control and helping farmers get out of drought or inundation situations. So the focus of AI for Good came out of this competition where we observed that really what the market wants, what people ask it to solve for, are what we categorize as AI for Good. And there are some examples of that we identify. For instance, I cannot see the slides here myself.
Can you actually describe what we're seeing here? Because this really struck me when you described what this was. It blew my mind.
Absolutely. This is actually one of the challenges that is on the competition. The goal was really to enable any one of us to have more health intelligence at our disposal. So a mom can actually, without having access to a doctor, to be able to capture a number of body vitals and to form an opinion about how to handle a child's health or situation of stress or anything else that the child can go through. So the idea of that is that how can AI can be enabled to everyone and be given to 1 billion people en masse at large scale. So this is what the idea was behind. And there are some other examples that I can talk about.
Yeah,
for instance, another topic that came about, which was very interesting, is that how can we preserve bee populations from extinction? So a team of researchers actually came up with this idea of understanding not only the bee movements and migration, but also the language. And out of the language and the bee movement, try to decipher what are the threats that are affecting the bee population so that actually to predict what they can actually save the bee population. So that's another example that comes to mind among many other examples. The last one I'm going to cite is a team of researchers between actually Montreal and London are working on behavior changes, how to decide based on cognitive changes that we have if a patient with opioid adherence could actually come into relapse, and how can you avoid relapses of opioid by patients that are under opioid treatment. So these are just a few examples out of the hundreds that we have found.
And eradicating opioid addiction is not something that you think about when you think about AI. Similarly, tackling something like misogyny or trolling on the internet isn't necessarily something you think about with AI being part of the solution to that, because sometimes it's part of the problem.
Well, you can imagine that we can today, with the technology of pattern recognition and deep learning that we have access, we can pretty much predict the pattern of bullying, for instance, or abuse in certain social conversations, whether they're on Snapchat or on social forums or on Twitter. Those can be detected. So if the question is to prevent women from being abused or small children from being abused, that could be a form of AI for good that could be made available as an open source for everyone to use and integrate into different services and layers to help people being prevented from those situations.
Can we talk a little bit about what's perceived to be high technology and low tech? Because there's lots of different applications of AI in various parts of the world, and it's not necessarily always about rocket science, let's say.
For sure, when we talk about AI, the question is, and we've talked about it before, how it can become democratized and accessible to all. And today we're not in a position yet where the whole world have access to network capacity, computing power, devices, training, and knowledge. So in the next slide, I'm going to show you an example of situations where you can actually plug a vocal assistant to a simple feature phone, where anybody can interrogate through voice questions such as health of the children or issues about economy or the weather or anything else. And that dialogue can be done through remote servers that have this intelligence remotely, but can be basically brought to a much larger population. So the low-tech part of here is that there are 3 billion people that have feature phones. They don't have to have a smartphone. They don't have to have a cloud computing access. They don't have to have 4G. Just the simple 2G and the voice commands could today be sufficient enough to bring that benefit to them. So in fact, democratizing an AI for good could also be on a low-tech side.
So it does feel like there are so many innovations happening in various different parts of the world, and it's happening already now. But it also feels like this is quite timely, where the groundwork or the foundation for where we go from here is being laid in terms of the types of questions we need to be asking, the type of ethical questions we need to be asking ourselves. I mean, when you showed me the slide there of the woman looking after her child and using a virtual assistant essentially, that to me raises some concerns about how would you regulate that, or how do you ensure that the duty of care is going to be there in a robust enough way, because there's always an element of danger with it.
I think the audience is pretty aware today that we talk about a number of issues related to data, and data is a foundation today for machine learning and neural networks and deep learning. And without going to far-fetched AI progress tomorrow, the aspect of privacy is different from country to country. What is making sense in, let's say, Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam might not have the same cultural background or meaning in Buenos Aires. What is probably acceptable in some African countries in terms of community-wide sharing might not be the same in London or in Beirut. So differences in privacy, differences in control, differences in ethical aspect and cultural framework and context should define how we develop and deploy AI. And that is unfortunately not universal. So it has to be distributed. So this difference between data acceptance and data usage is going to be at the government level, should be something that governments should be taking care of. We need to basically not only train more people to understand technologies such as the ones that embedded into AI, but also probably we need to think about how we capture data, how we share data, how our regulators and policymakers understand the impact of data, impact of AI formula, how our technologists are busy building and designing systems that could be not only controlled, but also maintained in an ethical context.
It seems to me that one of the big things about robotics and machines and AI that actually challenges the human race is not so much, again, mechanics, but actually how it reflects back on us and our own identities and who we are. And that's the thing that we're kind of reassessing and evolving at the moment. There's a lot of fear out there about what exactly we have to lose, or what we stand to lose, and then what we have to gain through all of this.
You named it. The term fear is the real topic here, because there are different levels of fear. One of the fears is technological, is basically not being able to catch up technology, and that fear exists into some companies, governments, groups, and communities. The fear of losing jobs is an economical question. The fear of automation taking over some of our freedom and capabilities is another fear. The real fear, I think, that we probably not see is what machines and the general technology of AI are providing to us, which is the ability for us to predict. By providing cheaper prediction, ability to basically to make prediction available en masse, we'll start gradually to not have the judgment development, to be able to tackle certain decisions and judgment that we have to make, and machines will be able to make some of those judgments. So the fear is about machines not being able to explain their decisions and their reasoning, of not us understanding them. So by basically having access to a new form of intelligence that we don't understand, we're creating scenarios where we're not allowing technology such as machine intelligence helping us, but we're allowing technology machine intelligence creating this new wave of decisions that we have no clue how to stop.
So you're essentially saying that, are we all in danger of losing our ability for critical thinking and just becoming, you know, a part of a bigger machine that doesn't really engage and is engineered to think in a certain way? Where do the new philosophers of this world emerge in the world of AI?
Well, there is definitely that risk, because when you think about our identity based on historical context, our training, our education, our family, but also our background. And we have been basically the result of a biological evolution. And our next evolution seems to somehow be impacted by how we understand new notions of decision-making, data, and machines that is going to make our life easier. And if we don't make decisions, if we don't develop critical thinking, if we're not trained to understand how they change our social behavior, our relationship with other humans, and we try to become closer to machines, there are going to be inevitably a change in our identity. And that change today is unknown. We don't know. We need to somehow probably make that more of an open debate and discussion. Because I don't know if the speed at which we're investing and moving forward with technology investment and creating all around technologies, with taking the time to stop and think about the social implications of those capabilities on our human abilities.
I suppose, where do you draw the line? You know, I know even when you and I were emailing back and forth because of the different time zones that we live in, On my email, the artificial intelligence was helping me finish my own sentences, you know, and it's very tempting to become quite lazy and just let it do all of the work for you.
I think these are luxuries that we all expect to have more and more. Maybe there is an opportunity today to still think about what those technologies really bring to our life and how they impact our social connectivity and rapport with each other. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to solve solutions and tackle grand challenges. And AI is just a small piece of that. And if we let this conversation on AI, which I'm a proponent of, and our job is really to talk about the next frontier of man and machine robotics and intelligence, we're the first one to say, because we just serendipitously, when we opened up this competition, we realized that all the project and what people are working on has nothing to do with what industry is talking about. People want to solve problems that are dear to them, that are social issues, that are different issues that tackle their life directly, and we need to probably pause and understand what this means.
We've just about a minute and a half left, but I wanted to just pick up very briefly on what you said about jobs. And yes, there are going to be millions of jobs that will be lost as a result of automation and AI and robotics coming in. But it's not all bad news for us, is it? I mean, there are things that human beings intrinsically have, their creativity, the human connection, the matrix of the human mind, which is so complex, that, you know, we don't have to worry just yet about us all sitting there completely unemployed with nothing else to do.
I think we all hope that humans are still going to be more intelligent and better than machines. But let's not talk about hope. Reality is that human mind is good at imagination, is good at creativity, is good at extrapolation. We connect one context to another. Machines are good at interpolation. Machines are good at filling the blank. Machines are good at providing patterns. So we should use those patterns to improve our intelligence of extrapolation, of intelligent reasoning, or including judgment in our next reasoning. So really, the real threat is, in our experience, is not man versus machine, is how can we use machines to make sure humans make the decision, not machine making the decision.
Final question, if you can, in 10 seconds. What is the thing that excites you the most about AI?
Well, AI is such a vast area and so really amazing. But what basically motivates me personally and think my team is an opportunity to really think about what our human intelligence is and is becoming. That's a real opportunity, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, please say thank you to Amir Banifatemi. Amir, thank you very much.